We created Discovery Kids Learning Center with the purpose of providing exceptional childcare and preschool opportunities for our local communities. With that purpose in mind, we strive for our staff to maintain the highest integrity in the workplace, because when our staff are thriving, our children's learning environment is thriving as well. It's one thing to say, but it's another thing to implement and follow through. And as an owner, I want to make sure that I create and set the tone for that, and then hold staff to those expectations. Welcome to our orientation video. This video is designed for all of our staff, whether you're an aide, you're a long-time lead teacher with tremendous experience, whether you're a cook or a landscaper, it doesn't matter what your role is here. This is an environment where you have an opportunity to grow professionally. We want to have advancement opportunities for everyone, so it's important to understand what everybody's roles are. Here, that we have some of our philosophies, whether it's our secret sauce or simply procedures, expectations that we have for staff. So please, dial in to this orientation training, as it is going to be imperative for your success here, as well as it's going to help you be able to fulfill your responsibilities, because people are going to be relying on you, and this is just the beginning process for us to help you get off on the right foot. So our secret sauce is our staff, and our philosophy behind the secret sauce is that in order for this to be a phenomenal place for kids to learn and grow, it's got to be a great place to work. So that starts with all of our teachers and our cooks and our admin and our any support staff. We've got to make sure that we hold ourselves to the highest level of accountability and respect between staff. When it comes to negative talk flow and creating a good work environment, what goes up should never go down. And here's what I mean. You're frustrated and you need help solving a problem. Work with your teacher. Ask them, hey, I was frustrated by this. Is this what you meant? Or, I was thinking about this, do you think that would work? I mean, ask open-ended questions and then listen for a response and be prepared to learn. Let's say it's frustrating, your co-teacher just doesn't seem receptive to your ideas, your comments, your suggestions. You're wanting to help out and they're like, no, I got it, and they're not willing to delegate anything to you. That frustration and call for help needs to go up in a positive manner. So that means you go up to, if you're an aide, you talk to your director. Say, hey, I need help with this situation. Because the director, whoever's in charge of running the center at the time, is going to have a lot of insight, a lot of experience of navigating the same kinds of problems and conflicts that you're dealing with. Maybe ultimately what we have to do is bring both parties, you and this make-believe person, bring them together in the office, say, okay, so I'm hearing some frustrations, let's just bring out our concerns, thoughts, and ideas out in the open. We should always be looking for solutions in a positive manner. Positive goes down to those people working with you and maybe under you if you're a supervisor. Regulation requires us to have an ECT, an early childhood teacher, in every classroom. Now, early childhood credentials, not everybody has them, so what we've got to do is make sure we have the most qualified individual in a classroom with kids at any one time if there's not an ECT available. So that means if you're brand new to the childcare industry, you're going to be placed with an ECT or an extremely qualified and experienced staff member of ours. You have to understand that that staff member is in charge of making sure everything in that room is running as it should be. They're ultimately responsible if someone's injured or making sure things are getting done, making sure the room's getting cleaned properly and that kind of thing. But also, they're going to be ultimately responsible to be in charge of watching for kids' safety and managing the classroom, regardless of whether there's 24 kiddos in that classroom or just 5. If you're in the classroom as an aide with a lead teacher, you're going to find that you're going to be taking direction and trying to figure out what it is that you can do to make that classroom run better. Asking
the teacher, hey, what could I be doing right now that would help you out? What a lead teacher really wants is an aide that takes initiative and that remembers how to anticipate the same schedules that the classroom has day in and day out. We're really looking for someone that's coachable and teachable in the classroom so that you can begin taking on more responsibility. One of the frustrations that sometimes I hear is, I feel like I'm only cleaning, I'm cleaning all the time. Well, if you're brand new in this field, one thing you have to understand and accept is one way that we keep these kids safe in our care is that we've got to have a clean and safe environment.
This is called BNC 15. This is a sanitizer and disinfectant all in one. The length of time that this product sits on a surface determines how much cleaning it's doing, whether it's sanitizing for general surfaces, whether it's sanitizing for food surfaces, or if it's disinfecting. Couple rules, general rules to consider, is that we sanitize surfaces that children come in general contact with, like tabletops and chairs and shelving. We sanitize toys, we sanitize doorknobs and light switches and walls. We're going to disinfect surfaces where bodily fluids could come in contact with. So that'd be bathrooms are going to get disinfected. That means a nap mat, when a child may have an accident and that child's bodily fluids come in contact with that mat, we would disinfect that. Then we'd follow up by sanitizing it after. Disinfectant depends on how much contact time it has with the surface. So important, when you're using the cleaners, you want to spray it such that it has a nice big open spray. You don't want to dial these in so it's squirting like this, wasting a lot of product in one general area. So make sure you adjust your tip so you have a nice general spray coverage like that. Any surfaces that children have general contact with, for example, chairs. To sanitize these chairs, a nice light spray just like that, I'm going to wait 15 seconds and I can wipe them clean. I have two choices. I could use a paper towel or I could use a clean rag. After 15 seconds, those chairs are considered sanitized. I can use one rag, I can wipe them all down, and we're done. I can do that same process with this product as a sanitizer for 15 seconds on shelves, on light switches, doors, any surface kids come in contact with. 15 seconds to let it sit, wipe it down, and you're good. The second category is food prep surfaces. So for example, that's going to be a table. So I'm going to spray the table. That's going to sit for 1 minute because then we're going to serve breakfast, lunch, or snack. Now we can come by with a paper towel or a clean rag. Paper towels typically used more commonly. We'll wipe it down. This table now is sanitized. Good, after that product's set for a minute. Now let's say that this is, or we're going to move to the bathroom. So to use this as a disinfectant, we're going to let it sit for 3 minutes. That's the difference. So you want to be careful that you don't spray a surface and then come right behind it and wipe it out. You've got to let the chemicals do their job. So in a bathroom, spray tops and bottoms, underneath the toilets, around the backs, everything for 3 minutes, and then wipe it up. That area is disinfected. When it comes to sanitizing nap mats, all we need, again, BNC 15 takes only 15 seconds to sanitize a non-food surface. Take your mat, spray both sides. You can stack them up in a big pile if you like. And you can go through your entire mat, stack them up. As long as it's had 15 seconds on the nap mat, then you can come back, wipe off both sides. You've got a new clean pile. You can use the same paper towel until it's too wet. Grab a new one. And you're done. The second way to sanitize nap mats, if you have enough room in your classroom, You can spray both sides, and you can simply set them up and let them air dry. Get back to them later. Then you can wipe them down once a week with a towel, for example. The only time you need to use a disinfectant on a nap mat is if a child has an accident. You'll want to wipe it down. Now you'll want to sanitize it. Difference is only 15 seconds, and then wipe it down. That same holds true with a diaper changing station. So if this is a diaper changing station, in between infants or toddlers or 2 or 3-year-olds that are changing diapers, you're going to spray it, you're going to wait 15 seconds, that's all. And then wipe it clean, and it's ready for the next child. If when changing that diaper, feces or urine comes in contact with this, we need to disinfect first, then sanitize. At least once a day we want to use a harder chemical, a stronger chemical. Currently that chemical for us is peroxy, and that's what we want to use in there to spray it down, let it sit 5 minutes, and then go back, wipe it all down really good. Make sure you get all the surfaces in the bathroom, behind the toilet, up underneath the sink, so we're killing all that bacteria that can exist in there. This product can also be used on the floor for carpet stains, for if a child has an accident on the floor. So this peroxy can be used on porous surfaces like carpet, vomit, that kind of thing. This is going to kill a lot of those chemicals that are going to exist in bodily fluids and stomach acids as well.
Clean the bathroom first. Gloves are great. Spray everything down. Start on the top of the toilet, then work to the bottom of the toilet. Get underneath the sink. Anywhere bacteria can form, let's make sure we clean it. When you're done scrubbing all surfaces, wiping down the mirror and all that kind of thing, then take a disinfectant and spray those surfaces one last time with the disinfectant at the end of the night, and then just let that disinfectant dry. Is a great way. The next morning it's all ready for use. When we're about ready to rock a mop bucket, make sure that you understand that everything that goes in that mop bucket is metered. Whatever chemical we're using, whether it's a dispenser that has a metered amount, where you simply push the button and it pre-mixes water and solution, know how high to fill that bucket. If we have a separate solution that you're having to mix, whether it's coming out of a gallon jug or any other kind of container, focus and pay attention to how much chemical goes in that bucket. When you're mopping, when you're pushing mop buckets, put 2 hands on them so you avoid spills. That's a big one. And then make sure the floor is good and swept so you're not just pushing dirt around. Also make sure that that mop bucket is clean when you go to use that solution in your classroom. If that mop bucket's been used for 2 or 3 classrooms already and it starts to get soiled, dump it out, make a new bucket. So usually at the end of the day, especially in Fruta, we use that bucket for 2.5 rooms, and then we'll switch it out and use it, finish it out with the last 2 larger ones. So pay attention to make sure you're using a clean solution. And the mop heads, make sure you've got a good mop head on there. The mop head's ratty, tangled, it's time to throw it away, put a new one on. Make sure those mop heads get washed. If it's used in Fruta, it's every night. If it's in Junction, it's every few nights because it's mopping less. And make sure they never go into the dryer because you'll have a rat's nest in the morning.
Used one of these in the past. You understand, hopefully there's a bag inside this bag where all the dirt goes. There's a cord that we're going to plug into the wall. So let's start with that. All of our outlets are safety conscious, so sometimes you got to push, slide, and plug it in. Now at home, to unplug a vacuum, you may jerk the cord out. Please don't ever do that here. Reach for the cord, grab it, so that these wires don't separate on us. If the vacuum is working properly, you're going to be able to pick up anything visual, dirt on the floor, and you're not going to be able to smell much when it comes to dust coming out of that bag. If you notice when you're vacuuming that more dust seems to be coming out than possibly being sucked into that vacuum, then the bag's probably full. So you can feel the bag to see how full it is. I can feel a big, huge, like a football down here. If you can get a football in your hand with dirt in that bag, then we need to replace the bag. So to do that, unzip the outer bag, get yourself a new bag, carefully just slide the old bag out. That's going to go right into the trash. We're going to take the new bag, slide it down inside. We're going to press this firmly and carefully over that port, zip it back up. The inside of this bag will need to be cleaned once in a while, so about every couple months we'll want to wash it. If this looks extremely dirty, this one's ready to be washed, then we'll make sure we run that properly through the washing machine. All of our vacuums are these Oryx right here. Simple on-off switch, push and go. These vacuums don't have the ability to get around the edges, so once a week we have other vacuums with tools where you can go around once a week and get around the edges of all the classrooms. Moving on from keeping the center clean, whether it's bathrooms, sinks, counters, tables, floors, walls, light switches, we've got to keep ourselves clean. So make sure you're doing a lot of hand washing. Hand washing is one of the best ways to avoid the spread of germs and viruses and bacteria. So, you know, a firefighter doesn't run into a fire without his protective gear on. We got to make sure that we keep ourselves safe here. Hand washing is a first line of defense against minimizing the spread of germs and viruses. Our child care regulations require that staff wash their hands every time they walk inside the building. So the first thing you should do when you come to work each morning is wash your hands. Regulations and quality standards say 20 seconds. It's really important for our staff that are not working in the kitchen to understand what goes on in the kitchen. We're going to illustrate and talk a little bit about what the expectations are for our cooks so that you can better anticipate, understand what they're working to accomplish, because there's a great partnership that needs to happen between the cook and the classroom. If we're working in the kitchen and we're making breakfast or lunch in particular, number one, we always want to make sure we try to cook for 110% of the amount of kids we're going to have. So we can always run a calculator and do some math and figure out based on our enrollment, whether it's during the summer or during the school year, a non-school day, we can give you ideas on how much product, how much food to cook, let's say for lunch. So try to cook a little bit extra and make sure that that we're sending that all out at once, if at all possible. Make sure your carts are clean, that the handles on your carts are clean, your carts are sanitized regularly. You know, make sure that the teachers are going to have enough bowls or cups or plates, forks, napkins, all those things, so that teachers aren't having to come back and forth from the classroom to get 2 more cups or 2 more spoons, those types of things. And remember that, you know, from early preschool on up, these kiddos should be learning how to use a fork. So don't send out spoons with spaghetti to school agers, for example. We want to teach these kids how to use these utensils, so make sure that the staff have all those. Also, when the food is sent out to the classrooms, make sure you're coming back around and checking on everybody once everybody's got their food. Make sure they've got enough plates and spoons and everything. So, you know, you work 8 hours a day in the kitchen, and the mealtime is only, you know, 1 hour of all that, or an hour and a half. So that's kind of your game time. It's when you're to be on your best when it comes to serving the classrooms and making sure that we're servicing the classrooms. So it's one thing to make a great lunch and push it out, but that's not break time. So
When you get lunch out, make sure you follow through to that entire process, from those carts being pulled at the proper time. If it's breakfast, those carts are pulled out of the classrooms at 8 o'clock, to lunch, that you're following through, making sure everybody's getting what they need. They're helping with getting the dishes out and things like that after a meal. Once a year, we're required to put on a training for all staff that's going to cover all of the procedures and policies with the state food program. In that training, we also, part of that is a civil rights training. So you'll see that once a year. From a teacher's perspective and responsibility, so teachers and AZ to make sure that the tables are ready, that they're sanitized before any food is put on the tables, that the kids are doing proper hand washing before they're sitting down, and we make sure that that whole transition and process from kids washing hands to sitting down till the time they take that first bite is as quick and efficient as possible. Expectations when you're eating is that staff sit and eat with the kids. Eat what comes out of the kitchen if you're able to. If you're on a special diet, that's fine, as long as that special diet doesn't include McDonald's, Burger King, or Wendy's. So we're not bringing fast food in, and we're not having Domino's delivered while we eat Domino's and the kids eat green beans and casserole. So be food wise when it comes to sitting and eating with kids, as well as that's a great opportunity for conversation. Expectations throughout the classrooms. From early preschool up, kiddos need to be raising their hand, ask for seconds, raising their hand to be excused, bussing their own plates, and that means stacking the plates properly in the tub, scraping their plates into the trash can, stacking their spoons into some type of mechanism in the tub possibly, not just throwing their plates into the tub. It's important early on in the school year and early when you get a new kiddo to teach them right the first time. It'll save you a tremendous amount of effort and work later, and you won't have to spend the entire year listening to plates smash into that tub. Let's talk a little bit about passing out food. So we will dish up the plates for all the kids and then set the plate completely full of all the components. It's important to make sure we get the right amount of food for the age of child on that plate in the first serving. When it comes to milk, in early preschool we're going to be pouring the milk glasses. Make sure you're pouring it the right amount, and we need to make sure the entire amount of milk that's required is on the table and available for the kids. From preschool up, we want to make sure we're pouring pitchers so that kids can pour their own milk. So that's a fine motor skill that we want to be able to teach them. And it also teaches them social skills, such as, would you please pass the milk? Let's talk about seconds and can I have more? Seconds are not required, but they shouldn't be denied unless we have some kind of communication with the parent, something in writing. We've got maybe a nutrition plan for specific food. They're trying to reduce some sugar or other types of things like that. It's never okay to say, you're not able to leave until you eat all your food. It's never okay to say, when you pick up all of the blocks that you knocked off the shelf, then you can come eat lunch. Because if that child doesn't pick up the blocks, according to what you said, they don't get lunch, and that's withholding food. We can't withhold food, ever, ever. Never as a discipline, never as an incentive are we to withhold food. Now, however, if a child is sitting down and they take their plate and they do one of these numbers and they knock their plate on the floor, you're not required to serve them another plate. To me, that would say, you're not hungry or you don't want to eat today. Well, you know, lunch will be in a couple hours or snack will be in a couple hours. Time to problem solve. Looks like we got a mess to clean up here. So, again, we're never going to require a child to take a no thank you bite. We want to appropriately encourage kids to take no thank you bites. So those are some really important rules when it comes to seconds. If you have, 3 corn dogs left and 7 kids, and they all want seconds, well, what do? Do you throw the 3 corn dogs away because you don't have enough to serve everybody? Hopefully you can do better math than that. divide 3 corn dogs by 7 and give everybody, you know, 5/8 of a corn dog or whatever it might be, right? Cut it up in small pieces and divide it out. We'd rather get rid of that food and give it to kids and offer them these extra seconds or thirds. If that's the case, if it's on a healthy side, then we would throw it in the trash. Remember, sometimes lunch and breakfast here might be the 1 or 2 most healthiest meals these kids eat every day. So it's okay to do seconds and thirds. Should not be expected. Don't ask the cook to head back to the kitchen and make you some more peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because your kids are still hungry. All right, they're going to do their best to anticipate how much food to make. Let's do our best to properly and successfully encourage our kids to eat well. It's important to have a successful transition from that lunch table to everything being cleaned up, done, and as a group, you're off into another program, another part of your day. The first thing is when the first kid raises their hand that they're finished, you might encourage them to sit there and visit with their friends for a few minutes. That is okay. But as kids are transitioning in out, whether it's into a free play area or part of the day, or maybe they're picking up a book and doing some readings, make sure that transition is appropriately supervised, and that you've got a strategy. If you've got slow eaters and you're in a school age room, you might have those kids at one table and your quick eaters at the other table, so that you can get your quick eaters done, get that table cleaned up, and these guys can lag a little bit behind. There's lots of strategies to make lunch successful. Once all the kids are removed from the table, now it's time to wipe off all the product off the table and then sanitize. Don't be sanitizing a table or cleaning it with kids at the table. So you don't want to spray chemical on an empty area of the table when you have a child still at the table next to you cleaning. Any chemical that gets anywhere close to a child where they could breathe that in, it's not good. So make sure that doesn't happen. Spray the table, wipe it down, sanitize it, move all the chairs back, spray all the chairs, wipe them down, maybe stack the chairs or move them further back, then sweep the floor, and you might have to do a spot mop on the floor if it was spaghetti and green beans, for example. Otherwise, make sure you clean up the floor and chairs after every meal properly. Don't leave at 3:30 after snack crackers on the floor and grapes on the floor that were stepped on because you're like, well, my closing staff will get that at 6 o'clock tonight. No, because parents are going to walk through there and kids might come back to do free choice and stuff like that. So make sure we always tidy up after every meal. It's really important. Let's talk about loading the dishwasher and proper ways to do that. There's 2 types of trays we have. One with little dividers in there. Those are going to be for the cups and bowls and plates. And another one is a flat bottom. So that's going to be for all the flatware and utensils. Number 1, be sure you don't overload any one of these trays. Our commercial dishwashers cycle in under 3 minutes, so there's no need to overload one of those trays. Make sure you've got a place that's proper to let those trays and the flatware, the dishes, dry properly over a towel before you stack them and put them away. Make sure if you're using small cups on one of those trays, you stack an empty tray on top of that to keep those cups from shooting upside down, right, and flying all over the dishwasher. If you're washing toys in a toy bag, make sure nothing's hanging through down below that tray like a drawstring on a toy bag, because that's going to get caught up in the dishwasher mechanism at the bottom. We want to make sure that everything's secure, from stoppers and sippy cups to small things. You want to take a look at that drain and make sure that little Legos haven't fallen out of a bag and gotten caught in that drain. That'll cause it to leak all over the floor. If you open the dishwasher and take a look inside, you'll notice that the water line is just below a nut and washer on the filter stem. So familiarize yourself with that. Recognize where that water level needs to remain, and then if it goes above, let somebody know so we can get a service guy to come and adjust that water level. The other thing is cleaning that filter. That needs to be done daily. So pull that filter out, make sure there's no obstruction in there, there's no toys in there, make sure it's clean so that dishwasher can function properly the next day. it's a tremendous asset for us, whether it's washing dishes or sanitizing toys at the end of each day. So make sure we're doing that. At the end of the night, make sure we're draining all the water out of that dishwasher. Every classroom should have a mouthing bucket. All right, these are toys that go into the mouth that need to be sanitized before they're put back out for other kids to play with. So if it's an infant or a toddler and they're mouthing some kind of a plastic ring, you can allow them to finish mouthing and playing with that ring. When they're done, before another child goes over there and grabs that, you need to take that and toss it in the bucket. That bucket should be full at the end of each night, especially if you're in a younger kid's room or toys are getting mouthed regularly. And before those get put back out into the classroom, they need to be run through that dishwasher. So depending on your room, you might send those to the dishwasher once a day, maybe once every couple of days. It really depends. But recognize every room needs to have that in order to make sure that we're not continuing the spread of germs and we're minimizing that the best we can. There must be a designated diaper changing area. You need to have a clean and disinfected diaper changing area before you put a child down. Make sure all your supplies that you're going to need are at that station so you don't have to walk away to grab the child's diaper. Put on a new clean pair of disposable gloves. That is required. Place the child down on a clean surface. Remove the child's diaper. Make sure you're wiping that child from front to back. Enclose that soiled diaper in your gloves. You can take off your gloves, wrap up that diaper in there. It's going to help contain everything and anything in there, including the odors. And then make sure they're disposed of in a sealed trash can container. Let's say a child is using a cloth diaper. Make sure you put that cloth diaper in a bag for the parent to go home with, and then that should be in some kind of a sealed container. The parents take that bag home with them every single day. You're not able to rinse off or shake out a cloth diaper. So if a child goes number 2, that stays in that cloth diaper and goes home. If you're applying any topical ointments to the child, you've got to put on a new pair of gloves. We can put on topical ointments like a diaper cream if we're using it for preventative measures. However, if a child has open sores, we're going to have a doctor's note with a parent signature to be able to apply any kind of ointment in the form of treating a condition like open sores on a child. Gloves should be removed before handling the clean clothes and a new diaper. Wash, rinse, and dry the child's hands after, and then make sure you clean and disinfect, and you're good to go. Make sure you're washing your hands also between every diaper change. All right, let's spend a few minutes talking about when it's appropriate to send kids home. Here's the thing. We've got to keep a healthy environment and a safe environment for kids to be here. Part of that is removing children that are in our care when they're sick. One of the biggest reasons we'll send a child home is because they have a fever. A fever for us, for a send home, is going to be defined as 100 degrees. 100.0. That's the time they're most likely going to be contagious. Other times might be for diarrhea, vomiting, they just are not feeling well at all. And when it comes to those symptoms, we're typically looking for 2. So if they don't feel well and then they have diarrhea, okay, that's a good likely send home. They're vomiting and they have diarrhea, there again. So if a child doesn't seem well, always temp them before you send them home or before you make the phone call. So they don't feel well, they have a little upset stomach, they got some diarrhea, don't you call the parent without temping them first. Because you temp them, find out they have 101, now you've got 2 solid symptoms. Remember, when a parent has to pay for childcare when their child isn't here, and the parent can't work because they've got to stay home with their child, that can be stressful and upsetting for a parent. It's part of the gig, it's part of parenting. So we've got to be responsible when it comes to sending children home appropriately and keeping children here when they might just have a slight cold. That's still appropriate to have them here as long as we're doing our best to keeping other kids safe. Good rule of thumb is always check with the director or senior staff member if you have questions on whether or not to send them home. Some things require a doctor's note. If it's a situation where we don't know why the child is sick, maybe they have a rash, or we need a doctor permission because that's the safest call to have them come back. Other times, if they have a temp, we think it might be the flu, that type of thing, we don't need a doctor's note. When their fever is free, without fever for 24 hours, they should be in good shape. So the important thing is recognize this is a sensitive time when we have to call a parent to send a child home. So we want to make sure we go about it the right way.
Whenever you send a kid home, make sure you send them home with a get well card. So pick one that's appropriate. Maybe they got an ouch, or they fell and hit their head, or maybe they have some kind of bug. On the back of that card, make sure you put their name, what you found as the symptoms, and when they can return. We'll help you decide that. Maybe it's they need a doctor's note if they had some kind of a rash. If they had a fever, remember 100 degrees, and they go home, 100.0 and they go, then you check the box at the bottom that says they cannot return until they're fever free for 24 hours without medication. It's critical to send these home because you may hand one to dad, who goes home, hands it to mom, who turns out to be the responsible one, that reminds dad the next day, what are you doing? They can't go back to school. They had a fever yesterday. Didn't you see the note? So it's super good communication to keep kids that are contagious out of the program until they're healthy to return. So let's say a child is injured and it's obvious they need medical help. Maybe they had a laceration from inside the classroom or outside. They get a rock stuck in their forehead. They're going to need some medical help. If it's life-threatening at all, call 911. If it's not, make sure you apply immediate first aid, call the parents and let them know, hey, this happened to Johnny. It looks like they're going to need some medical attention. Maybe stitches or maybe glued up, but we need to get them to the doctor's office. Depending on how long it'll take the parent to get here, we might just wait for them. In Grand Junction, you're going to make sure you wait. Parents are going to take them to the doctor's office or to the emergency room. In Fruita, if it's not life-threatening and we have the opportunity to walk them around the back of our building to Western Valley Family Practice. Between 12 and 1 at lunchtime, we can walk them over to the hospital. We also have medical insurance. That paperwork is always located in the office on a clipboard attached to the large filing cabinet at both centers. We'll want to send that with parents as well. Hey, come help. Hey, little guy, are you okay? Are you okay? Hey, he's unconscious, he's not breathing. Call 911 and come right back. One of the most important things is when you're working in child care is you're always ready. Always ready for anything, for any kind of emergency. In this case here we've got a toddler that we found in a room by himself, unconscious and not breathing. CPR is critical. It's really important to be able to keep your calm and recognize when you've got a life-threatening emergency. In this case, we're going to check the child, make sure he's, see what the child's state is. We're going to look, listen, and feel. Child's not breathing. Send someone to call 911 right away. Make sure you tell them to come back. And then you're going to start CPR. I'm going to immediately start with 30 chest compressions. 28, 29, 30, followed by 2 breaths. You're going to complete this process until help arrives. So it's important understanding adult, child CPR. If you're working with us and maybe find yourself in an infant room or with a small toddler, we also teach infant CPR. The most important thing with an infant is supporting the head and neck. So from your hands behind, elbow through the legs, you can do CPR on an infant on many surfaces. You could find a countertop, you could find the floor, you could literally cradle an infant in your hands if you needed to. Same thing holds true.
If an infant is unconscious and not breathing, we're going to do 30 chest compressions with the 2 fingers. Followed by 2 breaths. The most important thing is making sure that you've got 911 notified and on their way to help. There are classroom behaviors that we expect our teachers, our lead teachers, to be competent enough to address, correct, redirect, coach, guide kids, and handle in the classroom without a behavior report. We shouldn't write a behavior report, for example, if a child pushes another child in line, or if a child spits on the floor, okay, or a child says, "Damn it." Okay, these are things that we should be working on correcting and establishing the expectations with our kids. However, if a child pushes another child off a platform on the playground, that's really becoming an unsafe procedure. That might be something on the first time we might handle ourselves. If we recognize that's a learned behavior, this kid has the tendency to do that, we immediately need to write up a behavior report so we have documentation that we're communicating to the parents, hey, we have a concern about your behavior that your child exhibited. Take that behavior report, fold it in half so it's confidential. Write that child's first name and maybe last name initial on the outside and tape it to that child's cubby. Let's make sure in behavior reports that we don't identify any other kids that were involved. Ouch reports are somewhat similar. Let's start with what we ended with behavior. Same thing. You're going to keep other kids' names confidential. So in this case, if Johnny was bit, you're not going to say Jacob bit Johnny on the hand today. You're going to say another child bit Johnny on the hand today. Okay. Well, who was it? Who did it? Well, I can't share that with you. I can tell you that we did work with this other child. We are in touch with their parents and we are aware. We are handling and trying to address that behavior. So hopefully it doesn't happen again, or we minimize that possibility. Absolute times we write an ouch report, any kind of a head injury or head trauma, a bump on the head. If it's required to put an ice pack on a kid, you're pretty safe in saying you should write an ouch report for that. If you've got to wash off something and put a Band-Aid on it, sounds like a good time for an ouch report. Some of these ouch reports, maybe half, are okay to wait until the parents get to the center, they find the ouch report, you talk to them at the end of the day about that. But let's say a kiddo was bit. If the child is fine now, you've consoled that child and applied some first aid, that kind of thing, and now maybe it's nap time, for example, good time to reach out to the parent and say, hey, just wanted to give you a call today to let you know that Johnny got bit on the arm today. And you might elaborate, you might say he was playing at a train table with another kiddo, he happened to take another child's train, which that's going to happen, and the other child decided to bite. But we washed it out, put some ice on it, looks good, but you're going to probably notice that when you pick them up today. So just wanted to give you a heads up. That is such great customer care. It's great communication from us to that parent or family. So try to reach out with that phone call so that parents understand that this is a partnership and we want you to know that we're giving good care for your kid and we want to have great communication. The last thing with the ouch and behavior reports is once you write that report, come to the office and make a copy of it. Okay? That copy is for the parents to take home. We want our parents to sign a behavior or ouch report for us to put in that child's folder. We want the other report to go home so that maybe, if Dad picked up Jacob who had bit a child, Dad might be like, well, that happens. He tends to bite. But that behavior report now goes home and Mom takes a little different approach because she's bad cop, Daddy's good cop. And Mom says, oh, hey, that's not okay. So Mom maybe applies a little bit of reinforcement and strong parenting to Jacob to help reinforce that that's not safe. So the behavior reports, it's really important that they go home so that it's a piece of paper that both parents hopefully will have conversation about and can address it with their child. One of the most important things to remember is before a child is 36 months old, a lot of these elbows and shoulders and ligaments and so forth are very much not fully developed, and so you always have to be careful how you handle little ones. And so let's talk about what not to do. So we never want to pick up a toddler, let's say by an arm or by even 2 arms. Never by the wrists. Okay, so wrists, arms, they're all a no-no. We want to make sure we get underneath all infants and toddlers when we pick them up. Also use good lifting technique and make sure you bend at the waist or at the hips, right? So we're not hurting our back as well. So, and it doesn't matter how much of a hurry you're in. We need to move a toddler from point A to point B. We can't get in a hurry, Rick, and grab by their arms and twist them. We always have to make sure that we bend down, we pick them up underneath the armpits when we're moving them. All right? Safety first, always. It's important, it's your responsibility to make sure that you're properly utilizing our time clock. You can't be forgetting to clock in and forgetting to clock out. You've got to fix that. That's your responsibility if you want paid, and I want you to get paid. So whether you're using a fingerprint reader or you've got a bypass code and you're using that, every time you come in, we're clocking in. If you show up at 7:30 and you forget to clock in, and it's 8 o'clock and you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't clock in this morning, on the visitor child check-in sheet, write down your name, write down the time you arrived, and one of our directors will get that entered into ProCare so that you'll be able to clock out properly later on in the day. If you're leaving for a lunch break, if you're leaving campus, make sure you clock out. If you're hanging out, just waiting because you're like, I'm sure there's going to be some kids showing up soon, and you're waiting 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, a half an hour and a half. Come on, guys. So that's going to be possible right up on that. We want you to be aware of your current ratios. We don't want you to go over, but we don't want you to be under and sitting around waiting for kids. Use that time productively. Every classroom is going to have a closing sheet, a checklist of things that need to be closed down and cleaned properly. It might be a laundry schedule. It might be a toy cleaning night. It might be what day of the week we're pulling rugs, whether it's 1 or 2 days a week that we're pulling rugs. Also on there is going to be what day of the week or how many times a week do we move shelves. Every shelf should be moved in at least once a week in every classroom to make sure we pick up the toys underneath there. Be aware of that cleaning list. If you're having challenges as a lead maybe of saying, hey, my room's not getting cleaned, then that sheet may need to be laminated, and we may temporarily need to have staff initial which functions that they do each night, and then it's wiped clean at the end of the week. If you've got a classroom that's running properly, that means staff are sharing responsibilities, that means things are getting cleaned on time. You probably don't need to be initialing that sheet, but that's a good tool to get a room back on track. Know your ratios. Okay, know your ratios. Know what that one teacher ratio is, so when you get down to that, your lead teacher is going to be in charge of those kids. If you're that aide, you're checking in with the closing supervisor for duties around the center, or you're shutting down your room. Checking in with the closing supervisor with center duties is really important because we've got to work as a collective unit. We've got to work as a team. Show your desire to be helpful when it comes to contributing to other parts of that center. Know, based on the ratios and the size room you have, what the expected protocol is going to be. So you don't want to be sweeping and mopping a room when there's 20 kids in there. You want to be able to use all those components of the room. But now when the room drops to 10 or 12, you maybe might be able to sweep, possibly mop, but not too early as well. You don't want people tracking across your wet floors. We're never going to vacuum in a room with there's kids. That can always wait until those kids are gone or they move to a different room if they're combining numbers at the end of the night. All of these things your closing supervisor is going to help coach you on. Make sure you do that final walkthrough. Make sure you look around and make sure everything's like it should be in the morning. Listen. Listen for any running toilets. So we're not running that toilet overnight. We're checking windows. We're making sure they're locked. We're pushing on the exterior doors. We're checking doorknobs. Making sure all doors, windows shut, locked properly. Look for miscellaneous toys that might be on the ground. Make sure things have been swept, that classrooms have been mopped, that classrooms have been vacuumed properly. It's important to make sure you button up at the end of the night so when the staff come in the next day, they're ready for a new day. We are caring for precious little people, and the responsibility that comes with that is tremendous. So I hopefully you've learned some good stuff from this. Understanding is just an introductory to what we do and how we do it. The learning process will continue, but really that's up to you to determine how much you're going to learn and grow, not only with us but in our industry. So wish you all the best. Glad you're a part of the team.